Hi everyone, Big Finny A. Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this self-titled album from Wet Leg. UK rock duo Wet Leg, featuring Rhian Teasdale and Hester Chambers, both of whom came together, started this little project a few years ago, and after a handful of singles popped off a little bit in the midst of the pandemic, they quickly became one of the most buzzed about bands in indie in the last few years. And as a result of that, I can say this personally was one of my most anticipated records of this year. Songs like CHAISE LONGUE as well as ANGELICA, simple but groovy fusions of indie rock and post-punk revivalism, executed with very back-to-basics drum and guitar work, and topped with lyrics that came across witty, absurd, cheeky. So many of these vibes were reinforced by the other teasers to drop in advance of this record too. Whether that be Wet Dream, which is a rowdy and catchy cut about masturbation and attraction, maybe also using your taste for clout, bragging about having the movie Buffalo 66 on DVD. The shouty vocals on the chorus are perfect. Beam me up, count me in, 3, 2, 1. Let's begin. Meanwhile, the song Oh No is completely White Stripes all the way, from the Meg White style drums to the sunburnt guitar tones. The lyrics essentially about wormholing and zoning out on your phone. Even if the tune and some of the riffs are a bit tedious, the message does hit hard. Then Too Late Now was used as the closing track on here, which I think is fitting as it does tie up some of the record's anxieties and worries pretty well, tossing them into a self-care anthem that addresses all of these social pressures that may be causing worry over things that don't really matter, and also the dread of seeing your life go down a path that you may have not intended it to go. But in the face of that, maybe take some time to love yourself, do a bubble bath. So again, there were some very good teasers that had me excited to listen to this entire LP, but I was sad to find a lot of the deep cuts here didn't really keep track with my first impressions of Wet Leg's music, I guess. Now, I don't fault Wet Leg for wanting to hand in a versatile record of bops and slow burners, but most of the low-key moments on this record detour into these very drab and uninspired indie cuts, some of which are derivative, like Convincing, that comes off kind of like a piece of Runoff from Angel Olsen's second LP, or the track Supermarket, which sounds like a Weezer song from the group chorus and the drum intro and some of the slacker-style vocals, but if you tried to execute it with some very loose, twee indie instrumentation. There's also I Don't Want to Go Out, which brings some very quaint, jangly pop rock to the table, with curious verses that I like quite a bit, but they build up into these drony, long-winded hooks that can't seem to spin a melody worth remembering. Loving You, meanwhile, is a super minimal piece of drum machine pop, which is a risk and an admirable change of pace if you've got the vocals and the tune to back it up, but it's exactly on those fronts I think this track falters and just falls very short. I mean, because of that, the lyrics about a relationship that didn't work out and this guy still wanting to be friends even though he's moved on and started dating someone new and being very mad and very bitter about that, yeah, this narrative kind of sticks out more than the song itself on this track. Piece of Shit also is seemingly about a very unlikable romantic interest, proving himself to be kind of a douche and having to be emotionally distant and guarded with this person to protect yourself. In terms of the lyrics here, I'm kind of sensing a pattern on this record, especially as we move on to Your Mum, which is about giving up on a relationship that's not working out. Now, in one breath, it seems like this decision is being arrived at mutually, like we're just not the best for each other, but then there are also parts that seem very angry and bitter. You're always so full of it, why don't you just suck my dick? When I think about what you've become, I feel sorry for your mum. Nobody is above making dumb romantic decisions, but why did this even start in the first place? I'm not saying the sentiment of the song is invalid, there just has to have been some interesting details that brought us from point A to point B that would have made for a more engaging track all around. And that's kind of my issue with this self-titled LP as a whole. It does kind of have a bit of a style and personality that it brings to the table, and some solid tunes here and there as well, but on the whole it does feel a little surface level and like it's just not really scratching that deeply. The intensity of the performances, the lack of vocal range and color across many of these tracks too, even with that giant scream at the end of Your Mum, it does leave something to be desired. Yeah, there are some highlights on here. Most of them are tracks I heard before the album was actually out, and yeah, the rest of the record just doesn't really keep up the pace all that well. Still, I did like this record overall, and I can only hope that Wet Leg is just getting started and will bring something bolder and more interesting into the future. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Wet Leg, forever.